You knock on a closed door. You don't read the diary sitting on your friend's bedside table. Someone lowers their voice and you understand that the conversation just got more intimate.
But these social rules aren't timeless. For much of history, people shared beds and living spaces, and having a space of your own was an unusual privilege.
This is Hold That Thought. We are in the middle of our mini-series, Reality by Agreement, where we're examining something that feels like a fact of modern life and tracing back to find the exact moment that society agreed to adhere to it. This week, we're talking about privacy.
How did architecture help invent it? When did we start believing truly that we have a private life that only we are entitled to?
How did that expectation become something that the law could protect? And where is technology making it that much harder to uphold?
Because privacy isn't really created by the closed door. It's upheld by our agreement not to open it. Hold that thought. Hey, Becky.
Hey, T. Last time I was editing, the software identified 3 voices.
Oh my gosh.
And one was that initial, hey, Becky.
That's so funny.
It's really funny. Your hair looks so bomb today.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm responding to the combo of the hair, the tanner,
You
both
did
of those things
do
together.
good things to me.
My fine work.
You did do your fine work. Well, we're starting our episodes now with a new kind of framework.
Mm-hmm.
What's a thought or an experience that surprised you in the past week?
Yeah, that gave you pause.
It gave you pause. It gave me pause how if I didn't have you telling me exactly what to do for a self-tan, I wouldn't do it.
Well,
What
it
does
was
that
amazing.
say about me?
The way you were my most coachable client. It was amazing. So our friend Bear and I are in the car on Saturday. We're going to the beach. She's deciding whether she wants to do fake tan for her wedding. Doesn't want to outsource it to like a company that specializes in it. Asked her old friend Becky to administer it.
Yeah.
So we were strategizing around what tanner to use. And we were telling you, okay, you do need to prep a day ahead because there can be issues if you prep day of. So gave you a really clearly bulleted list, collaborated on that list, Bear and I did, and told you to shave, but like to exfoliate first. We suggested St. Ives and CeraVe just as examples. And Bear said to me, should we be instructing her to go to CVS? And I said, I think that's a bridge too far. And our girl, I was thinking about this multiple times today. I was like, it is so cute that you went.
I got the exact thing and I literally was thinking, can't disappoint them. Can't get the wrong thing.
So cute and so sad. I was like, literally use your mother's hand-me-down washcloth to exfoliate.
Oh, that would have been enough?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've used St. Ives before, so it wasn't like I was a newbie to it. So I did think might as well.
There's a really funny discourse online about like when people are dogging on someone who isn't seen well in the public eye, they'll be like, I hope you used St. Ives a la 2016 as a form of self-harm.
That's really funny. I have to say,
Quite creative.
I was using it and thinking, this is way gentler than I remember it being.
Really?
I do think they've made their grain
they must
smaller.
have, because that was actually like walnut.
It's not
chunks.
walnut anymore. It's like fine sand. It's Bahamas sand now.
Wow. Microdermabrasion.
It is. So I was
Interesting.
surprised at myself that I feel, but it's endearing. I'm giving myself a little, it's okay that you're so reliant on your friends telling you what to do.
No, I think it's so endearing that you don't know how to self-tan.
Yeah.
And I wish I didn't know how, but you don't get this just waking up in the morning. This isn't God's gift.
Okay, what was your thought that surprised you? And hopefully most weeks I'll have a more grounded thought than that.
Yeah. Hey, we contain multitudes. Mine was a moment of pause. We both went to the Noah Khan concert at Oracle Park, which is a baseball park. And it was so fun in that venue.
It was so fun to be outside.
So
for
fun to
live
be
music like
outside.
that. Yeah.
And while Noah was singing Call Your Mom, which is a really emotional song, the lyrics talk about a friend who has severe depression and suicidal ideation. And Noah is in essence being like, I am here for you. I'll call your mom. I will show up. I will support you. And during that song, a shooting star went behind the stage and many people around me saw it.
That's so cool.
Bear thought that it might have been one of whatever that was seagulls that was flying
I thought
around.
too, because I saw something too, and I thought it was a shooting star, and I think it was because then I didn't see a bird.
Yeah.
So I think it was a shooting star.
Yeah, it was a shooting star. Someone got it on video. Did you see that?
No.
I'll show you. Bear sent it to me. She was like, I didn't believe it until I saw it on video. And I was like, I told you. But I knew I kept seeing the birds after, and I was like, that is not the speed at which that went.
Yeah.
And so that was a moment of pause for me because I was like, I want to do anything I can to get Noah to hear about this event. And I wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't be for selfish purposes. I just wanted to like get him the information because I thought if that song is about a real world event for him, which I believe it was, the song is really vulnerable. And I just wondered if there would be any significance for him. So it gave me pause to see the star across the sky, and it was really sweet to see so many people have that emotional response to it. And then when I saw the video that Bear sent of footage of the star where it's clear as day, all the comments were just really sweet, being like, this would happen at a Noah Kahan concert.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was thinking during the concert how I never am as excited for concerts as I want to be, and then when I'm in them, first of all, it was incredible. Second of all, when you are in a setting where everyone is joyful and experiencing the same thing all together and are all strangers.
Yeah.
And yes, you could say that's the case for a sporting event, but there's something about music that just instills a little bit more, I think,
Soul.
Spirituality and soul to the whole thing.
Yeah.
That it's really fulfilling about humanity to be in a setting like that. And so then to have everyone feel this remarkable moment of a shooting star all together is just really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
My dad's a total convert. Luis is a total convert.
At the end of that song, which obviously is very beautiful and very intense and sad, Nico goes, "So he's a snitch?"
Oh, God.
As a joke.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Well, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about privacy within the context of our mini-series, Reality by Agreement. And when we're speaking about privacy, we'll get into both the sense of physical privacy and also emotional privacy, like when you think of having secrets from people.
And privacy, as it's conventionally understood, is relatively young in the journey of our human evolution and human history. It's only about 150 years old. That said, humans, we have an instinctual desire for privacy.
When you say privacy is only 150 years old, you mean in the sense of like
as
physical...
we understood it today. Yeah. Physical protection of your own space.
Okay.
And a right to that own life a little bit outside of complete sharing with others.
Okay.
And humans do have an instinctual desire for it, but in the hierarchy of needs, it falls... In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it falls quite below others. Connection, success, convenience, all things that are valued more than privacy. So for so long, our lives were not set up to make it easy enough to get privacy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so relatively new in how we understand it today.
It's interesting when you said where it falls on our list of priorities. I was thinking about how a huge sector of Americans, if they were to rank their priorities, not based on actual human need, but
Preference,
privacy would be really high.
Yeah, what? But I think we'll get to this. People don't live their lives in accordance with that. And I think we'll talk about this.
Okay.
Well, just in the context of we all knowingly walk throughout the day not protecting our privacy.
Except cookies.
Literally. Yeah. But
why the fuck did they call it cookies? They made it so tempting.
They did. And they fooled us all.
Fresh baked.
Yeah. For the majority of our earliest ancestors, everything was done in commune together for survival.
Yeah.
You didn't have a separate cave. And earliest houses, there were, everyone in one room. Again, it was a survival thing. Obviously, survival beats solitude. And it was the early Greeks that started to have some kind of framework for privacy in their architecture. They started to create housing that would minimize exposure to the public view while also allow light. And that was a balance that wasn't really achieved. But even within this growth of privacy within your own home from the streets, it was very unpopular in early Greek philosophy. There's a quote from Socrates: "For when men conceal their ways from one another in darkness rather than light, there no man will ever rightly gain either his due honor or office or the justice that is befitting." The philosophy was still very much that privacy was shady.
Yeah.
Privacy was going to inhibit the true growth and light of humans and human society.
Interesting. Some of what I was seeing was even further back, if we want to situate it, hunter-gatherer era. So as you alluded to, the idea that we sleep in private bedrooms only became the norm as of like 1920. So about 100 years ago. Out of 300,000 years of human history, that ends up being 0.03% of human history that we have had privacy in the sense of our own unique living space.
Which is really interesting because I was reading from a psychological, anthropological lens that humans have always tended towards wanting to have sex in private and breastfeed in private and things like that.
Yeah.
But for so long, that hasn't been a priority to create that space for it.
What are those breastfeeding things in the airport called? Like mamus?
The moose, yeah. So crazy.
Hunter-gatherers would have killed for that. Another caveat to what you said about this being kind of a primal instinct of ours, I saw that people have always sought secrecy and solitude and control over information, but the modern expectation of privacy has specific historical origins. For much of history, everyday life was much more communal. People shared rooms and beds, servants moved through households, neighbors knew one another's business, and many activities we now regard as private happened around other people. One of the best pieces of research I stumbled upon was by anthropologist Robin Dunbar. Did you talk about him before? What episode was that?
Gossip.
That makes total sense.
Episode.
Okay, so anthropologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University found that hunter-gatherer bands stayed within 50 feet of each other every waking hour. So during the day, there would be foraging parties of about like 15 people, but that was as small as it usually got. Overnight, camps and bands of people were between 30 and 50 individuals.
Yeah, to be alone, you were sitting duck.
Right, exactly. So they were literally sleeping around fires together. And this ethnographic evidence that he supplies suggests that life in these camps could involve an almost unimaginable degree of continuous exposure to other people, which when you think about it, modern day, like that is that is a lot of people's nightmare.
Yeah, no alone time.
No alone
No
time.
recharge. It's almost like, what did it look like to be an introvert back then?
So true.
Like, was that even, it definitely wasn't obviously in their lexicon or way of considering, but there must have been those whose personalities were more suited towards quiet time. And how did they get that or survive?
Were certain professions self-selecting because they required more solitude?
Yeah, I would imagine like hunters, maybe you could
leave me alone, Janet. I'm going to get some meat.
Yeah, exactly. You probably had to go in smaller groups because you didn't want to like be too loud. And most early hunter-gatherer societies, it was typically the men who would go hunting. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what's up for our women?
Right.
Introverts.
True. Maybe they were weaving next to each other.
In silence.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Anthropologist Patricia Draper described these hunter-gatherer camps in the Kalahari, spans across Botswana, parts of Namibia, and South Africa. And she wrote that everyone in the camp can see and often hear everyone else virtually all the time. In her research, she talks about how because people could observe one another so continuously, hoarding, anger, status seeking, and other antisocial behaviors that would depart from group norms were way harder to conceal. And so the social compact within tribes was strong because it was disincentivized to conceal information from each other. So everything was on the table. Social life was constantly available for inspection. For most of human history, privacy could not mean being somewhere nobody could see you. You lived among a few dozen people who were overwhelmingly familiar to you, in spaces where much of everyday behavior was observable. The question was less, how do I get behind a closed door or like in a separate cave? And more so, how do we collectively decide when not to look, listen, ask, or interfere? So like, when do we, as members of this community, divert our attention away? Because I guess that goes to the point we made earlier that privacy is something we do crave
inherently
as humans.
Yeah.
And so those tensions had to be negotiated. You still had to create room for it, but it was sanctioned in a different way. It wasn't like you had physical privacy. It was more about providing emotional sound.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Archaeologist Ian Hodder at Cambridge University found the world's first walls, he claims, he pronounced this so easily, so I'm going to look up how to pronounce it, at Châtelhuyuk. Fuck. Châtelhuyuk.
Cool. Totally.
Wonderful. It's one of the world's oldest and largest Neolithic settlements in Turkey. And the archaeologist found that the walls correlated with something very unexpected. There was a measurable rise in violence and conflict that coincided with the introduction of walls.
Wow.
He believes that the walls gave people separation and also therefore gave them something to defend. It was the introduction of mine.
Yeah.
In a way.
Whoa, that's so interesting.
Yeah. As the settlement became more crowded, archaeological evidence suggests that conflict increased, and bioarchaeologists studying, I can't say the name again, found an unusually substantial record of interpersonal trauma. 25 of 93 examined crania showed healed, depressed fractures. So basically, that means that something happened to their head. Something bonked their head, and it was fractured, and then it healed.
Yeah.
The injuries became more frequent during the site's middle period, and the researchers say the pattern is consistent with increasing interpersonal violence as population size and density increased.
Dang. Again, we made our lives so much more complicated by becoming settled civilization.
I was looking at some academic research. One of the quotes I saw was, "Not until the 18th century do we see a broad development of inner doors, locks, hallways, and back stairs separated from the living spaces. Before those changes, having a space of one's own at home behind a closed door was an unusual privilege," as we talked about at the beginning. And when you think about the introduction of locks, a crazy idea.
Yeah.
This research was talking about how architecture teaches behavior. This is a bedroom and it has a closed door so you don't walk in. And this is someone's desk, and on top of the desk there are letters and you don't read those. And it was really with the introduction of the corridor, which is like, think of like a hallway in a home that has the rooms branching off of it. With the introduction of the corridor, you get increased privacy. Before that, moving through the house meant often going through occupied space and encountering people.
Oh, that's
because
so interesting.
To get to your bedroom, you had to go through the living room, through the kitchen, to your bedroom. My parents actually, with my sister, one of their homes was
railroad car home,
maybe, where you had to go through her room to get to their room. Sorry, Meg. And the introduction of the corridor made avoidance possible of other people. Robin Evans, who wrote Figures, Doors, and Passages, read this as a shift from a culture of bodily contact and carnality to one of privacy and detachment. And it was interesting because he was kind of ambivalent about, like, he didn't view the corridor as progress per se. He was just like, this thing led to this behavior, but he wasn't ascribing positivity to it.
There's a downside to all of this, which is the isolation, the avoidance, the separation. Yeah,
totally. When you think of the metaphor of a wall, Berlin Wall, you think of the wall in Game of Thrones. A wall really can do some damage.
Let's break down walls between us, shall we?
Break down walls. One other text I saw was Life in the English Country House by Mark Girard.
Totally.
And he talked about how servants played into all of this. And the corridor enabled a setup wherein servants could move throughout the house without crossing the family's path.
And being seen. So yeah, codifying those social classes even more. Sad.
This author, Millette Shamir, wrote Inexpressible Privacy, and she traces like our modern conception of privacy back to the middle decades of the 19th century. Her claim is that the cultural ideas and architecture worked in tandem to seal, regulate, and sanctify private spaces. So all of that converged in her view. She analyzes architectural blueprints for private homes alongside conduct manuals, telling people how not to intrude on others.
That's so cool.
Funny. And one scholarly review she included looked at the specialization of spaces within the home. The parlor is a good example, which is one that people don't call spaces parlors in their modern homes as much, but the parlor really represented sociable domestic life, while the study represented autonomous, secluded individual life.
For men.
We have the kitchen though.
Yeah.
So the house began encoding different degrees of access
and
to
seclusion. And and like, this is my room versus your room, like
designated purpose. Totally. And not only are private spaces increasing in this time, but there's this idea of a private self that develops alongside the private home. This coincides with literacy rates increasing and this idea of individualism as opposed to collectivism. And there's this growth of personal correspondence, like diaries and letters at this time, tied to that literacy increase and more intimate family life with that seclusion. And so people increasingly imagine that there is an interior version of themselves that isn't automatically available to everyone else. So not only do you have private space, but you have private information.
Yes. So interesting you just said that, because I was seeing in my research that it really was early Christian saints that created this concept of seclusion. So much of what the Christian Bible, which is the New Testament, was this idea that to overcome this evil that we all have inside of us to an extent, you need to really work on your internal self and find that internal morality and separate yourself from distractions of civilization if you are to be holy and one with God. And so saints and monks would take themselves apart and be alone to access that internal world and reach what they assumed would be their highest self through being alone, through seclusion. And so I just think that's exactly pivoting to what you're just saying of this growth of the morality of an internal self was really built upon religious underpinnings for many centuries.
Yeah. Not only was this idea connected to individuality, but it also was connected to religion.
Yeah. But I think what you said last week in our birthday episode, there was a difference between the Protestant Reformation. Well, I guess these saints are Catholic, but like I think it coincides really with internal morality a little bit, and having solitude be a element of finding that internal morality. And maybe it's a little bit of a both influencing each other.
Yeah.
And so by the time we reach the early United States of America, the concept of privacy rights and the fear of infringement on the rights is baked into the creation of this country.
Yeah. It's become an expectation.
Yeah. Even before the United States was the United States of America, in the colonies, there are cases showing that eavesdropping was a crime. One quote from a Pennsylvania court: "Every man's house is his castle, where no man has a right to intrude for any purpose whatsoever. No man has a right to pry into your secrecy in your own house. There are very few families where even the truth would not be very unpleasant to be told all over the country." Again, this concept that you have your internal secrets that must be locked in the diary or kept in your home, because otherwise it's unpleasant.
Wait till they find out about influencers trauma dumping.
Yeah. And we'll get to that. By the time the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1789, while there isn't explicitly a right to privacy, so many of our amendments are the right to privacy is baked into them. First, third, fourth, fifth. And that still was a pervasive desire. Like privacy became so much embedded in early Americans' expectations that even when the United States in 1787 instituted its first national census, going door to door and asking questions around how many people in your family, what's your occupation, even things around how much money do you make each year, triggered alarm bells and lots of
out of my business.
Lots of the colonists and early Americans. Obviously, there was the concept of taxes. That was obviously a big theme in the Revolutionary War. But also is this concept of get out of my interests. Like, you don't need to know how many people are in my family. You don't need to know. Get out of my house. It's my castle.
Wait, what did that remind me of? What's the rap in Hamilton where he's like, I know the end of it. Imagine what's gonna happen when you try to tax our whiskey. Cabinet Battle #1. This is my favorite song from the whole album.
I love It's Quiet Uptown, and I love, of course, Satisfied.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Now I'm alive, I swear to God, you never feel so helpless. Oh, I love that one too.
Stand with me in the land of the free and pray to God we never see Hamilton's candidacy. Look, when Britain taxed our tea, we got frisky. Imagine what gonna happen when you try to tax our whiskey.
Nailed
it. Good.
So good. And it wasn't until around the 1890s when there's a famous law review article published in the Harvard Law Review called The Right to Privacy, which was written by Justice Louis Brandeis, but it's credited both Brandeis and a man named Samuel Warren. And it is considered one of the most influential essays in legal history and the first one to properly argue for a right to privacy. It was, and I think this is timely for our discussion about privacy in our modern era, precipitated by the development of the Kodak camera.
Wow.
The Kodak camera was developed in 1888 and it made photography portable, affordable, and instant for ordinary people. It became this fear amongst society that strangers would just go out and start taking candid pictures of people.
There was a thing coming.
Yeah, they would die on.
Talk about something that would kill a Victorian child.
I literally was about to say that. If they came back from the grave, they'd be like, I'm back. I'm out. And so there was this concept called the Kodak fiends, or people who would go out and just snap photos everywhere of people. And so in The Right to Privacy, Brandeis and Warren charge that instantaneous photographs and newspaper enterprise have invaded the sacred precincts of private and domestic life. And they seek to consider whether the existing law affords a principle which can properly be invoked to protect the privacy of the individual. I think this is a thing that we are circling a lot on, and have for the past over a century been circling on how to manage that in the face of technological advancements.
Yeah.
And since that 1890 article, there have been consecutively, and there always is, new developments, both globally and within the US, seeking to define or put guardrails on what it looks like to have protection of privacy.
The target moves constantly.
Exactly. So 1917, Bureau of Investigation in the US rules on continuing to protect sealed mail. 1948, the UN declares that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondent. 1960, a legal scholar in the United States creates a standard tort, which essentially are like, how would you describe torts? It's personal protection law.
A civil wrong that causes harm or loss to another person, leading to legal liability for the person who caused it.
Right. So 1960, 4 additions were added to that. Intrusion upon seclusion or private affairs, public disclosure of embarrassing private facts, publicity which places a person in a false light in the public eye.
Like defamation?
Yep. And appropriation of one's name or likeness. All are now included within torts law as a reason to be able to sue someone else.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Very interesting.
1970s, we see the addition of a Student Privacy Act, which is essentially just protecting education records. Only in 1996 do we have HIPAA, so health and medical privacy. I'm just painting a picture of all of these continual understanding and conversations within our legal history, both globally, to understand what our rights are and how to protect those.
Well, interestingly, the legal definition is literally circular. The definition that most case law situates itself within, the precedent in our legal system, is Katz v. United States, 1967.
Okay.
And this demonstrated that American privacy law protects what you have a reasonable expectation of, and what's reasonable is set by what has become normal. So in that sense, it's very circular.
Yeah. But what's hard is what's reasonable, the goalpost keeps changing, like what we just walked through. Yeah.
So in this case, Charles Katz was suspected of transmitting illegal gambling information across state lines using public payphones. FBI agents then attached a listening device to the outside of the public phone booth that Katz was using. The government argued essentially that because agents hadn't physically entered the booth, that there was no constitutionally protected search.
Wow.
It didn't require a warrant. The Supreme Court rejected that old property-focused approach to what is deemed private. Justice Stewart's majority opinion delivered a famous line, "The Fourth Amendment protects people, not places." Interesting. So something a person deliberately exposes publicly generally isn't protected, but something they seek to preserve as private, it has to do with implied motivation, can be protected even if
it's in a
publicly accessible. Yeah, even if it's in a publicly accessible place. Such as a phone booth. It is implied that he wanted that conversation to be private.
Right.
Therefore, it is a protected
conversation.
Yeah. Justice Harlan's concurrence turns that principle into the famous 2-part test. There must be, 1, an actual subjective expectation of privacy.
Ooh, yeah.
As is implied in a conversation where the door is closed on that phone booth. And an expectation that society is prepared to recognize as reasonable.
Right. Everyone is on board with the fact that if I walk into a phone booth, I should assume I'm able to have a private conversation. Not just Katz is assuming that.
Yes.
Everyone's assuming
If you were to poll
50
50 people, the majority would say it's reasonable to assume that person wanted the conversation to be private. So Katz was in a phone booth that anyone could walk up to that wasn't his property, but he went inside and he closed the door. And so Harlan points specifically to that behavior because it is to be assumed that person isn't wanting the conversation to be intercepted.
Overheard. Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting because, again, now we're going to get out of, I would frankly say, both of our depths here in terms of like legal conversations, but I think it's interesting and it's part of just our thought experiments because that concept of what one is assuming is private gets so muddied now that we have technology outside our homes that is making everything a surveillance in a way.
Yeah.
Because yes, I'm not walking on the street assuming I'm in a private phone booth and that someone won't overhear something I say, but I'm also not walking down the street assuming that I am being surveillanced, right? Or I'm not sending my email assuming that someone's going to read it.
Right.
And you could now, under that legal ruling, maybe interpret the fact that I'm willing to put something on the World Wide Web as being you're okay with it not being private.
There's always the event of a subpoena in which it's admitted
but that's
into
always the case, right? That's the case with
that's still
phone
an
booth one
example
too.
of, like when it is deemed of critical importance to a case,
Right. Totally.
something private is infringed upon.
Yes, but I'm talking about, like, I guess where I'm coming from is there's a lot of controversy right now after the Ring Cameras Super Bowl ad, where, if anyone doesn't remember it, it was about their search party.
Yeah, about a dog.
Yes, it was an ad for their search party feature whereby all of these rings come together to find a lost dog. And there was a lot of backlash as people said it was a privacy invasive practice. It spooked a lot of Americans, showing how this thing that a lot of us have put on our front door is and can be and is probably already part of a surveillance network that we don't even realize. At the time, Ring was in conversation with a driving surveillance company called Flock that is able to view license plates to create a data centralized operating system for police departments. So selling our data from Ring cameras to police departments for monitoring and surveillance. And so all to say, I don't walk by a door with a Ring camera and think I am in a space that could be surveillanced.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's public enough that I haven't closed the door.
Yeah.
So with that line of Cats versus US, there's very little standing I as an individual have when I walk by a Ring camera because I haven't closed the door.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
so
reasonable to assume that you know that you could be filmed outside.
Exactly. Even as I don't want to. And I will say there was a huge backlash to this ad, to this surveillance web, and Ring and Flock soon thereafter canceled their agreement to plug their systems together.
Wow.
I don't know if that's still the case. I don't think there's been a lot of reporting on whether that's changed, but it's just a little bit frightening.
Yeah. Another example that came to my mind was, did you see Kylie Jenner's collab for Ray-Ban Meta glasses?
Yes.
So
a lot talked about that.
A lot of negative backlash I've seen about that. And then also, this is such a small example, but remember the Coldplay concert where that CEO and his
head of
mistress
HR
were caught? There were all these questions around privacy there, and like she still feels that she deserves an apology for that from Chris Martin. And there was like, did I send you that video that had the people in the park who were making out who like had basically a similar dynamic?
No,
I don't know. There's all these weird.
Wait, it's so funny you say that because Luis and I were at a wedding a month ago and we were doing something cute. Like, I don't know what we were doing, but we were like kind of dancing. And then the photographer came over and was like, can I get a picture of you guys dancing? That was so cute. And immediately we got really awkward.
Yeah.
And Luis got so awkward. I was like, okay. And the woman goes, oh my God, are you not supposed to be like touching? And I was like, oh my God.
What an insane conclusion to jump to.
But I think it's happened to her before.
Are you not supposed to be touching?
She was like, did I just get you guys in trouble? Did I see something I wasn't supposed to see? And I was like,
that's
no.
how averse he was to being witnessed.
To being witness dancing. Anyway, the Meta glasses thing I was seeing a lot about too. And Kayla Scanlon, who's a New York Times contributing opinion writer who wrote a recent article exactly about tying the Kardashian family to Meta glasses and what that's going to do to the conversation around wearable technology and surveillance when you're trying to tie it to this person that sets trends so overtly in our society and our culture. But I thought an interesting quote about the use of wearable technology in general and Meta glasses was, if the product is free, aka after you buy the glasses, each use is technically free. You're not paying for each use and the data you're getting into it. If the product is free, you are the product. So you yourself and those people that you are now filming are going to be commodified by Meta. Your data will be. She talks about three prices: the sticker price, so how much you actually pay for this; the social price, so that's people are upset at you if they see you filming without asking for consent; and then the privacy price, both to others and also yourself, that you might not even realize.
Right. Is this a good time to say there's no such thing as a free lunch?
Yeah.
Like that applies here?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Totally. And I think there's even been some backlash about how you can pay $60 to someone on some website to get the red recording light on the Meta glasses disabled. So people won't know,
pedophiles.
A, it's a Meta glasses, or B, if they can recognize it's Meta glasses, that it's recording. So creepy, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are discounting the privacy price to themselves there. Like they think, oh, but that I'm just using this to get good footage. And I think a lot of people,
Black Mirror.
Yeah. And they're not recognizing that they themselves are also selling their own data. Like it's not just the data of people you capture. It's your own data, your own usage, your own, it can get your email sent in. But I think we're reacting this way because it seems so dystopian without recognizing that we already do this every single day with our phones. And the US is one of the countries that has the least data privacy protection laws in the entire world.
Wow.
Europe is extremely strict. It has the most framework for opt-in consent as the default, individual rights. Companies that are using personal data have fines for their revenue, like a tax. The US is a state-by-state basis.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so ironic. Like we are an individual society and we crave privacy to express that individuality and protect our own inner worlds, which has its downsides for sure, is so incongruent with the fact that it's our country that has the least amount of protection for privacy.
Yeah.
That's so
weird.
weird.
We're full of contradictions.
Yeah, we are. True.
Parting thought. Are you wearing Opie I'm a Funny Bunny?
No, I'm wearing something random.
It's so good.
But you like it?
Did you get that? Did you get them done?
Yeah, I got them done.
Really looking good.
But I do think that I'm not going to be able to find this one again. But I'm going to do something similar for the wedding. It's pretty. But I like Funny Bunny more, I think.
I think so too.
So I'm not too fussed.
Meanwhile, I'm over here picking.
I noticed that you did them again.
This is regular polish because I was picked. Did you see in your trash can last night? I picked off all of my. Bear was so disappointed in me.
It was so funny when she was like, I'm putting this back up.
I know. Next week, speaking of OP, I'm a Funny Bunny on your nails, which it's not currently. Next week's episode, which is concluding not only this mini-series, but our season 1 of Hold That Thought is going to be on weddings.
I'm excited. Let's see what we learn. Also, it will be our 34th episode.
Yep.
34 episodes in a season. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Thank you, Phoebe Fry, for this episode's music.
And thank you, Emily Kiernan, for the beautiful cover art.
If you like this episode, please like, share, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next week.